think Joe actually has he's got some All Trails comments from this area right around when this guy went missing.
Yeah, so what I started doing is on All Trails, what's really cool about this app is not only do people share pictures of the trails that a lot of times we're talking about, but it gives us like how long it took them to hike it. They put in comments about how difficult it was. They'll take pictures and they'll show where those pictures were along the trail. What's really cool too is you kind of get a good running visual representation of the current status of that trail. Lucky for us, there are literally images from the day he went missing from other people who did this trail. So we'll be posting those on the internet. You want to share my screen? Can you do it from yours?
Oh, yeah.
So here are the results we got from just a couple of random grabs from right around that time. So I have this one from June 7th, so the day before he went missing. Carlos and Paula say this was by far my favorite hike of the Grand Tetons. The other reviews were from a couple of weeks ago, so the snow was a lot worse. When we went, the snow was only on the trail at the very end. We had poles and micro spikes and made the snowy parts past the end of the hike very easy. 10 of 10, please do this hike. It's awesome. So what's cool is this is the day before he was there. He said there was a ton of snow, but at this point, it was pretty much gone, so it made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
This is a review from June 11th. Beautiful hike, amazing views. Trail was clearly marked, saw an elk and a bear. Very challenging, but took our time. Leave early to avoid crowds. So that comment tells me there's a lot of people on this trail.
Yep.
If he's making suggestions like, because you and I feel the same, we do not like being around tons of people. So we go at certain times where we think no one else will be there. So that's enough that he's commenting on it. Now here, and again, these will be on Facebook for the audio listeners only. Here are some photos taken by the All Trail users on the day Cian went missing. This is Garnet Canyon to the Lower Saddle Trail.
Oop, I think you got to scroll down. There you go.
Yeah, I was just reading it. So as you can see, like there's some trees, there's definitely some exposure, but it's pretty open.
Yeah.
So again, when I look at this, is if you go missing in this area, you're not necessarily going to be like under a ton of brush.
Yeah.
Like where it would be hard for people to find you, especially if you have colored clothing.
If you unfortunately fell, one of the comments I'll read in a few minutes is other people would see you. Either fall or they would see your body, not to get grisly or anything, down at the bottom of the canyon.
Exactly.
So it's wide open in a lot of these spots.
Yeah, it's exposed. And so here's another picture from that day. So very clear. Yeah. Doesn't look like it's stormy, no snow. So like very good conditions for hiking.
Yeah.
All right, you can pull the screen. There you go.
Yeah. So, where he was hiking reminds me a lot of, the trail we did. It looks very similar, and it's puzzling that he could have gone missing. So, this is a statement, before we get into what we think happened, this is a statement from a person on my favorite platform that I always say I don't like to quote, but I do, Reddit. So take it with a grain of salt. They could have totally made all this up, but it sounds similar to what I experienced hiking there. So this person wrote, completed the Garnet Canyon Trail today. The trail was packed Saturday in July, so not surprised. I find it very strange that he went missing without a clue. Granted, he had nothing with him. I watched multiple people running down my trail, which was steep and tons of loose rocks and tree roots. They had nothing but a water bottle. I had views of Taggart Lake, majority of the hike. I don't believe he went missing from that trail. It seemed like a heavily trafficked trail. Not to mention, at least from my perspective, it didn't seem all that high or tough. Trail max elevation gain is 1,600 feet, which is the same trail start I did up until the point you either continue higher or you turn towards the lakes and descend. The trail I completed didn't get sketchy till the top, where we were about 2,600 feet in elevation gain. It's loose, small rocks, and then you hit an end, which is huge boulders clogging the valley, which has a glacier melt running through parts. Plenty of overnight hikers climbing and over and through the giant rocks. I felt confident if something were to happen to me and I was conscious or at least unconscious within 10 or 20 feet of the trail, I would be found just by the pure volume of people going up and down. If I were to have fallen, there weren't many sharp cliffs. More more of very steep declines. Most were like 60 or 80 degrees. So even if I fell, it would be easy to spot. Something about this just doesn't pass the smell test. That is kind of the impression I got when I read this case after hiking the Tetons.
Yeah. And I didn't go there. So, cause like you immediately were kind of weirded out by this case. Like, and I, to be honest, I didn't even put my finger on it. I didn't mention it because I wanted it to come out on the actual show, but I didn't think about it. Like after you've been there, kind of around the same weathery time period, and given the images of what we saw, what actual conditions were, I can kind of see how it's like this is a hard place to go missing. Maybe not a hard place to get injured and die, but a hard place to go missing and not be found.
Yeah, that is the thought I was having. I went and hiked it in August. He hiked it in June. So, similar conditions. And
well, you and a complete stranger on the internet who've been there had a very similar sense. Yep. And I'm just, like I said, I'm not there, but looking at the pictures I've been seeing, I could see that because I've been hiking in areas like that. Yeah, and
I agree with you. There are plenty of spots, at least along the loop we did, where you could get injured and kill yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, completely not out of the question. The toughest part of our hike was when we were getting up towards the Paintbrush Divide. There was some real sketchy kind of switchbacks that you had to go up, and this was well above the tree line. And there's steep drop-offs, and like this guy said, there wasn't like a lot of jagged rock, but it was very steep elevation, like 60 to 80 degree slopes. And if I would have lost my footing and fallen, I would have died. But you would have seen something sitting at the bottom because there was no vegetation, no trees. Yeah. I mean, it's just open, rocky valley, and unless something happened to him at the lower elevations where the vegetation's thick, like where I saw the grizzly, I mean, you could, if you wandered off trail, something could happen, but I don't understand how he could have gone missing.
How thick is the vegetation? Like, is it super dense, or is it just, like, I saw the images, but you were on the ground. Like, is it like the kind of forest you could see maybe 20 feet in, or was it like if you're off the trail, it's just a wall?
I mean, it's the kind of, I would describe it as a lot of, like pine type trees and vegetation that would come up maybe, knee high on me.
Okay.
So like not super thick, like,
I mean, you could just go walk into it.
Yeah. Looking at, the pictures I have, at least where we were, you could walk in there pretty easily. I mean, it's pretty dense, but not as dense as some places we've hiked, like in the Rockies, like in Colorado or, or like Oregon. So, could he have gone missing in that denser vegetation? Totally possible. I mean, I guess we'll just jump right into theories. Yeah. Since we're already kind of talking.
I want to hear yours because you're very... very focused on whatever you have in mind.
So I don't think it's animal attack, even though there are grizzlies and, grizzly, brown bears, black bears in the park. There's cougars and bobcats, which are very rare. The type of search that happened, there would have, and, with all the dog search teams, they would have found evidence of an animal attack. And the thing you got to realize too is he was hiking in June, so bears, might still be coming out of their hibernation and they might be kind of grumpy and feeding, getting fattened up for the summer.
Sure.
So is it possible that he came across a disgruntled bear and it attacked him? Possible. Like when we encountered that grizzly in the Tetons, he was eating berries off trail, and the ranger told us that if there's natural food around, the bears will leave people alone.
Yeah, and they don't want to waste energy fighting.
They're not gonna attack you. They're gonna keep, unless they have their cubs with them. And this, a lot of these trails are so heavily trafficked that the bears typically don't like to get very close to the trails.
If there's a lot of people all the time, they're going to avoid those spaces.
Yeah, and I mean, the off chance that there's a bear who's had human food, the National Park Service unfortunately does a good job of, getting rid of those bears, which is why you should never feed them. So I'm going to rule out animal attack. I mean, he was traveling light.
I agree with you.
He doesn't sound like he had bear spray with him, which is, I mean, if you're hiking in grizzly country, always carry bear mace. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. I'm going to rule out any kind of mental health issue. It sounds like the law enforcement factored that in and ruled it out like right away. He seemed perfectly normal and,
and I actually have a video where he's talking. Let's see if I have it queued up.
Yeah. But,
keep going. But like, cause then we'd have a good idea of kind of, what's he saying? What does he sound like?
Yeah. So, I mean, he, let me know when you're ready. I'll switch.
I'm ready. Switch me.
All right.
I'll listen to Cian. This is, what it is for those listening. There's like not an ad, but like a clipping for his missing persons. And they actually embedded a video in the middle of it showing him.
So far I've gone 650 feet and just over a kilometer at 25 minutes, which isn't amazing, but the start of the season, you're pretty unfit. But thinking of doing a couple of videos of this season, the exploration of this season. Where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? If you're a skit skier, snowboarder, I don't think I'm gonna impress too much, but by all means, have a little look. Share, do as you please. Let's go.
So, I agree. Probably no mental health issues. Seemed like a really cool guy.
Yeah.
That was not when he went missing. Obviously, that was an earlier video for those listening. That's not a video that he took that they would found or recovered or anything.
Yeah. So I don't have any reason to believe that it was a mental health thing. He seemed, and obviously we've said this before. Just because somebody outwardly doesn't show signs of mental health issues doesn't mean that they're not dealing with something. So it's not always a great gauge of their mental health. But law enforcement did not seem to think that was an issue with this case. I mean, one of the things is in that video you played, he does seem kind of like adventurous, like an explorer.
Yes.
Like he may go for the 8-mile hike, but he might just be like, F it, I'm going to go off trail and just see what I can find. So perhaps he started down this trail, but then decided to just on a whim, stop off trail, and he got out of the search zone and had an accident then, and hasn't been found yet. And if it happened at lower elevations, he would be in a lot of that vegetation. If he passed away, his body would then probably be, there's bobcats, cougars, gray wolves, foxes, coyotes.
Yeah.
3 different bear species. I mean, the remains would be, disturbed.
Yeah, the clothing and such.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the weather was so nice. It's in the 70s. Like, he didn't have any warm weather gears, so if he was stuck out there at night, 38 degrees is cold if you're in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like that, could you make it through the night if you could, like, hunker down in a hole somewhere? Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, so I think there's a risk of, exposure and to hypothermia.
And that's so true. And I actually had an experience with that in high school when I went up to Boundary Waters.
Yeah.
Middle of summer. It was like June. Really warm out. I mean, we're swimming in the lakes.
Yep.
It's that type of heat. I remember I fell asleep outside next to the campfire.
Yeah.
And it went out at some point in the night, and I woke up and I was shaking. I was pre-hypothermic. I was actually very close, and like I had a hoodie on, I had pants on, but quite simply just laying on the ground, it like sucks all the body heat out of you.
Yeah.
So if you're already exposed to, cooler weather, you've been sweating, things like that, and you have to go to sleep and not have a proper shelter or insulation, you could go into hypothermia in a single night.
Oh yeah. I think, totally plausible. I think my main theory, I think, is based on his video that we watched, that in an adventurous explorer type, he went off trail and something happened. And because of that, they weren't able to find him. And he must have done it lower in the valley when there was still vegetation, because I just don't see how, if that happened higher elevations, they wouldn't have found him.
Yeah.
Especially on a sunny day in June, there's no snow on the ground. It's not going to snow. It's not like he fell down a canyon and then got covered with 5 feet of snow.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. It's June. And it's odd if he would have been at, like, I remember when we were doing the paintbrush divide, you could see people like all the way off into the distance, kind of like, you know, like you've seen this before.
In Glacier.
Like, yeah,
when we did the main trail that like goes around the whole mountain range.
So
like you see people that are like, it looks like a couple miles off, but it's really far away.
Yeah, and if I would have seen someone like way far off, like like a color, their backpack all of a sudden like tumble down the mountain, even if I was like a mile away, I would have seen something.
Yeah.
And I would have hiked up to that spot and stopped, and
You
I would
figured
have
out
at
what's
least
going on.
said something when I got off the trail to the park rangers.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was an accident higher up in elevation, because I think somebody would have seen it.
Yeah.
So yeah, my theory is he went off trail lower in the valley and something happened, and probably his remains will be found at some point, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't know. What do you think?
So, my initial process is kind of more like your second guess.
Yeah.
My thing was, I feel like he was experienced enough where he's one of those guys that can go fast in the trail.
Yeah.
7-mile loop is not, I mean, that's why he would start late in the afternoon. He could probably crack that thing out in a couple hours,
Yeah.
a few
no
hours.
bag, nothing.
Yep. With
yeah.
light gear, if he's used to hiking the mountains at that altitude, you can get that done quick. I assumed he either did that and then went off and did something else and then succumbed to some sort of injury, like you said. Or he was never in that trail, and that's just where somebody saw him. Maybe he was on his way out, and then he went somewhere else. I don't know. But I kind of agree with you. I feel
But his
like
car was there, so he didn't leave the park.
Well,
with
that's what
his
I'm saying.
car.
Like if he went somewhere else, but his car was still parked there.
Yep.
That's kind of what my guess was going to be, is that he was just not in the main focus search area for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most plausible reason. I know sometimes we say like maybe it was abduction or
I mean, that's kind of like,
killer.
yeah, I'd say like my A guess would be he was not in the search area because he went somewhere else. B guess would be something like what you said in their first guess of not really being prepared.
Yeah.
And that he's on that trail and just succumbed. They couldn't find him. Third guess would be like foul play.
Yeah.
Was he abducted in the parking lot
And we
for
forget,
whatever reason?
this wasn't even a year ago.
Yeah.
This was last June.
Yep.
So he went missing in June. Your window to hike the Tetons before a lot of heavy snow falls in is just a few months. So I mean, there is a chance, I'm not going to say likelihood, but there's a chance that maybe a hiker or climber discovers his remains this summer.
It happened with Paul Miller.
Yeah.
We did the episode, was in talk with his family, and then only a few months ago,
What about
they
that
found his remains.
lady that went missing in California? You remember her name? I thought that happened to her too.
Yes,
was the hairstylist.
they recovered like 20 miles and somewhere completely different.
Yeah, so it does happen. So I wouldn't be shocked if at some point maybe his remains are found. But the vast majority of the cases we do, they're not. So other than that, just kind of a strange case. This one was a little different for me because I didn't hike it last year when he did it, but I've hiked this park before. So it's kind of weird to know,
Been in the area.
this guy disappeared right in an area that we hiked. So hopefully they find him and his family gets closure.
Yep, totally agree.